Ancient African mounds in South America. Today, millions of blacks live in Central and South America. These blacks are believed to be descendants of slaves. In reality, there were blacks in America before Columbus discovered the New World. These blacks had been here for thousands of years. In fact, as early as 30,000 years ago, Africans began to settle much of South America and Mexico. Many of these blacks led fruitful lives in South America. These blacks mated with Native Americans, and today we can find many descendants of these prehistoric blacks. In the 14th century, the king or Mansa of Mali, Emperor Abu Bakari, along with tens of ships, set sail for the Americas from Africa. These Malians landed in many parts of the Americas, especially Brazil. From Brazil, they migrated northward. Other Malians sailed to North America. Moving along rivers, these Malians built mound settlements. The Malians often lived near rivers. Because they lived near rivers, there was a constant threat of flooding. Due to the flood threat, the Malians often built their dwellings on top of mounds. The mounds built by the Malians in the Sudan region of Africa were later transferred to America by Abu Bakari and his colonists. The Mandi-speaking people dominated much of the region of Northwest and West Africa, where the Niger River formerly emptied in the Sahara. This led to their important role in the spread of cultural features which originated in the fertile African crescent to the Americas between 1500 BC and Columbus's discovery of the Americas. Abu Bakari, who came to the New World, he brought his people here. These African colonists, they already had their own writing system. Because they had their own writing system, they left many inscriptions throughout the Americas. They left them in Oklahoma, they left them in Venezuela, and they also left them in Brazil. These Malians left us hundreds of inscriptions engraved on rocks throughout the Americas, especially Brazil. The Malians left us an artifact depicting one of their elites, dressed in the uniform worn by the Malian sailors. Yes, the Malian people had their own navy and they had their own army. They often had a cavalry too, which they used to fight in the savannah regions. But they also had a navy, and this navy would plow ships along the Niger River and the Senegal River, and they would carry information. One of the most interesting Malian rulers that lived in the Americas is a Malian that's depicted on the Brazil tablet. This Brazil tablet was found by P.H. Fawcett. The personage in this tablet was an elite of Malian colony in Brazil. Evidence suggesting Mandi origin for the Brazil tablet are 1, the crown worn by the personage on the tablet, 2, the Mandi inscription inscribed across the chest and feet of the figure on the tablet, and 3, the evidence of breeches similar to the Mandi style worn by personage depicted on the tablet. These breeches were characteristics of members of the Malian Navy. The decipherment of these inscriptions to tell the burial place and cause of death of a Mansa, or king. This Mansa, or king, was named Bey. It tells us that Bey was buried in a hemisphere mound, or a tomb. Many mounds excavated in South America dating back to Mansa Abu Bakari's expedition to the Americas have yielded many artifacts depicting Africans. The major center for the Malian mound habitation outside of Mexico and the United States were situated in Brazil, Panama, and Venezuela. In Brazil, there are many megalithic structures that seem to have their prototypes in Africa. For example, in Alagoas, we find many stone monuments similar to the stone circles made by rock, which were used to denote burial sites in West Africa. The habitation mounds of Brazil are called sambuquis. Some of the sambuquis have radiocarbon dates going back to prehistory, while many of the mounds where artifacts have been found in Brazil are related to the cultures of Venezuela. These Brazilian sambuquis have radiocarbon dates contemporaneous with the Mali voyages to the New World. Malians also built mounds in Venezuela. These Malians have left us many artifacts, including skeletons, figurines, and pottery. The mounds in Venezuela are usually, in a sense, situated along local rivers. Practically all the ancient figurines from Venezuela are of Africans. Although African males are commonly represented on many ancient American sites, the art from Venezuela, on the other hand, indicates that many of the African settlers were females. These female figures may have been fertility figures. Maybe in a sense when these Malians got here, they had a low birth rate, so they made these figures to maybe encourage or hopefully help the Malians to become more productive and reproduce more children. The archaeological evidence which links the Venezuelan mound cultures to the Malian voyage to America and Sudan mound cultures in general date between AD 1150 and 1500. These blacks lived in eastern Venezuela. They were riverine folk who used boats to communicate with each far-flung community. The artifacts relating to the Malian expansion in Venezuela were situated in the Valencia Basin at the point where the Andes joined the Cordillera del Caribe, behind the coastal area of Puerto Cabello, the Llanos, and a large expanse of lowland extending up and along the Orinoco River. The Malians established the Valencoid, Araquanoid cultures in period 4, 1150 to 1500 BC of Venezuelan history. These sites are situated along the middle and local Orinoco River. As mentioned earlier, the Orinoco River was the main settlement area for blacks in Venezuela. The Manding of the Aquanoid series were farmers. Archaeologists have discovered many hammer grinders, incised head lugs, and coffee bean eyes and bows of all styles with applique features like faces on the collars, including coffee bean eyes. The Valencoid style comprises pottery from the mound site of Valencia, which was a major archaeological site in Venezuela. Here the dead were buried in urns identical to those used in West Africa. The Valencoid pottery is usually red and white, while some were tricolored pottery. This tricolored pottery is used in the El Topo style. The Valencoid people also made collars decorated with human faces. The artifacts from Valencia correspond to artifacts discovered by the French scholar Desplanges when he excavated mounds along the Niger River at the turn of the 20th century. In the funeral chambers of these mounds, he found numerous pots with a red slip and copper instruments. The Niger then painted wares of white on dark red-brown variety. This corresponds to the white on red painted pottery from El Mayo style of Venezuela. Another possible Manding Malian mound site in Venezuela is the Terroid series of western Venezuela. The radiocarbon dates for this series of pottery is AD 1350. The pottery was painted and decorated with various combinations of red, black, and white. We also see other motifs, including a spiral and tiny birds. The figures of Tierro are also of women in a sitting position, with the right knee raised higher than the left and the right hand placed on the knee. The buttocks serve as the base. Finally, another interesting site for blacks in Venezuela was the Barrancoid series. The Barrancoid style pottery is very interesting. They also made statues. The statues from Barrancoid series have been dated between AD 1300 and 1350. These artifacts may have been made by Malians given the date of their origin. The Barrancoid series, we see blacks in an anthropomorphic form. Miguel G. Arroyo in Arte Prehispánico de Venezuela know that the art of the Barrancoid style is very interesting. The Barrancoid style series is similar to the series of art that is found in Zaire, especially among the Mangabitu, according to Dr. Oroyo. The Moranco itself includes beautiful vases and effigy jars. They made statues of women and men, either sitting on three-legged stools or in the sitting position with their legs and knees serving as a base, and the hands lying on the knees, as in the case of the statues discovered in the gym by the French archaeologist Mound. This sitting position is very interesting and is common in Malian art. Those Venezuelan humanoid statues sitting on stools seem to be either eating out of bowls or in a thinking position. The stool serves as a base for the statues, and the hands on the statues are placed on the knees. All the men and women in this Venezuelan art style have holes in the ears. The men wear girdles while the women are nude. In summary, the artifacts excavated in the ancient mounds of Venezuela indicate that Africans built many of these mounds. The fact that many art styles and artifacts recovered from these mounds illustrate similar things suggests an origin of the mounds builders from a common ideological system. This system originated in the fertile African crescent, the ancient Sahara, and was prominently illustrated in the art, literature, and culture of ancient Egypt. As a result, many researchers have been able to find analogy between ancient Egyptian culture elements and Mesoamerican cultural elements. This art that may have originated in the Sahara was also adopted by many African groups, especially the Manding people, who continued to produce this art when they moved into the Niger region. In fact, that many of the mound builders in America had cultured items and iconographic representations identical to those found in the Western Sudan, resulted from the fact that much of West Africa around the Niger Bend was not settled until after 500 BC. Therefore, those migrants that did settle the Americans would have come either from the area bordering on the Guinea coast or from Middle Africa as the Sahara began to dry up. But we know for sure that those blacks that came and built the mounds were basically people from ancient Mali. These Malians left a very exciting and interesting culture in South America.